The morning light filtered through the reinforced glass windows of Naval Special Warfare Command, casting long shadows across the polished floors where countless warriors had walked before. Commander Sarah Elena Vasquez stood at attention in the briefing room, her uniform crisp and, bearing immaculate, yet the weight of unspoken challenges pressed against her shoulders like an invisible burden. At 34, she had achieved what many considered impossible, not just becoming a Navy SEAL, but rising to command one of the most elite units in the world's most formidable military force. The path that led her to this moment had been forged through fire, shame, and an unwavering determination to transform weakness into unbreakable strength. Her story was not merely one of breaking barriers or shattering glass ceilings, but of a fundamental transformation that redefined what it meant to conquer not just external enemies, but the most dangerous adversary of all, the weak self that whispers doubts and fears in the darkest hours of trial. Sarah's journey began not in the prestigious halls of the Naval Academy or the sterile corridors of officer training, but in a modest apartment in East Los Angeles where the sound of sirens and gunshots provided a harsh lullaby for a child who dreamed of something greater. Her father, Miguel Vasquez, had been a Marine who returned from Desert Storm with wounds both visible and hidden, his Purple Heart displayed prominently on their kitchen wall next to unpaid bills and eviction notices. Her mother, Elena, worked double shifts as a night nurse, her hands perpetually stained with the antiseptic smell of the hospital where she tended to others while her own family struggled to survive. The first shower of shame came when Sarah was 12 years old, during a mandatory physical education class where the inadequacy of her threadbare clothing and worn sneakers marked her as different from her classmates. The gym teacher, a former college athlete with little patience for what he perceived as excuses, had singled her out during a fitness assessment. Vasquez, he had barked across the gymnasium, his voice echoing off the concrete walls, if you can't keep up with a simple mile run, how do you expect to accomplish anything significant in life? The words struck her like physical blows, not because they were particularly cruel, but because they articulated a fear that had been growing within her, that her circumstances would define her limitations forever. That afternoon, standing alone in the girls' locker room shower, the warm water mixing with tears of frustration and humiliation, Sarah made a promise that would reshape the trajectory of her entire existence. She would not merely overcome her circumstances, she would transform them into the very foundation of her strength. The second part of her transformation began in earnest during her sophomore year of high school when she discovered the Marine Corps Junior ROTC program. Staff Sergeant Jennifer Martinez, the program's senior instructor, recognized something in Sarah that the young woman had not yet seen in herself, a fierce intelligence coupled with an almost supernatural capacity for enduring hardship. Martinez had served 2 tours in Iraq and understood that true strength was not born from privilege or natural advantage, but forged in the crucible of adversity and refined through disciplined action. Cadet Vasquez, Martinez had said during their first private conversation, her weathered hands folded on the desk between them, I've seen your test scores and your performance records. You have the potential to excel in any field you choose. But potential without purpose is merely wasted energy. What do you want to accomplish with your life? Sarah's answer came without hesitation, surprising even herself with its clarity and conviction. I want to serve in a way that matters, Sergeant. I want to be part of something that makes a real difference, even if it's difficult. Especially if it's difficult. The older woman's expression softened slightly, though her military bearing remained unchanged. Difficulty is not the same as impossibility, but it requires you to become someone stronger than you are today. Are you prepared for that transformation? The question would echo in Sarah's mind for years to come, particularly during the darkest moments of her training and the bleakest hours of her service. The transformation Martinez spoke of was not merely physical, though the demands placed on Sarah's body would push her beyond limits she had never imagined possible. It was a fundamental rewiring of her mental and emotional architecture, a deliberate deconstruction of the weak self that sought comfort and security, and the careful construction of a warrior mentality that thrived in uncertainty and excelled under pressure. Her academic performance throughout high school was exemplary, driven not by natural brilliance but by a methodical discipline that turned studying into a form of mental conditioning. She approached each assignment, each test, each project with the same intensity that elite athletes brought to their training regimens. While her classmates attended parties and focused on typical teenage concerns, Sarah spent her evenings at the public library, immersing herself in military history, leadership theory, and the biographies of warriors who had overcome seemingly impossible odds. The third shower of shame came during her junior year when she attended a recruitment fair at her school. The representatives from various military branches set up their displays in the school gymnasium, their polished uniforms and confident demeanor attracting students who were beginning to think seriously about their futures. When Sarah approached the Navy table, specifically inquiring about special operations opportunities, the recruiter's response was delivered with a patronizing smile that she would never forget. "Young lady," he had said, his tone suggesting he was speaking to a child rather than a serious candidate, "the Navy has many excellent opportunities for women. Administrative positions, medical corps, logistics, all vital to our mission and much more suitable for someone with your background." The careful pause before background carried implications that went beyond her gender, touching on assumptions about her ethnicity, her economic circumstances, and her perceived limitations. Sarah felt the familiar burn of humiliation rising in her chest, but this time it was accompanied by something else, a cold, calculating anger that would fuel her determination for years to come. "With respect, sir," she replied, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions churning within her, "I'm interested in the most challenging opportunities the Navy has to offer. I understand that special operations programs have demanding standards, but I believe in meeting challenges rather than avoiding them." The recruiter's smile became even more condescending as he leaned back in his chair. "The SEAL program, for instance, has a washout rate of over 80% among the most physically and mentally prepared male candidates. The program isn't even open to women, and for good reason. Perhaps you might consider more realistic goals." That evening, Sarah stood once again in a shower where shame and determination mingled with the falling water. But, this time, the experience was different. Instead of being overwhelmed by the weight of others' limitations placed upon her, she felt a crystalline clarity forming around her purpose. She would not simply prove the recruiter wrong, she would demonstrate that his assumptions represented a fundamental misunderstanding of what human potential truly meant when coupled with unwavering determination and intelligent preparation. Her senior year became a relentless campaign of preparation that encompassed every aspect of her physical, mental, and emotional development. She woke each morning at 4:30 to run, regardless of weather conditions or her energy level from the previous day's activities. The streets of her neighborhood, which had once represented limitation and danger, became her training ground where she developed the cardiovascular endurance that would later carry her through the most demanding phases of military training. Her academic focus shifted toward subjects that would provide the strongest foundation for military service. She studied mathematics with a focus on navigation and ballistics calculations, learned Spanish and Arabic to expand her communication capabilities, and immersed herself in political science and international relations to better understand the global context in which modern military operations took place. Perhaps most importantly, she began the systematic destruction of her weak self through a process of deliberate discomfort and voluntary hardship. She gave up luxuries and conveniences that her peers took for granted, not out of necessity but as a form of mental conditioning. She slept on the floor instead of her bed, took cold showers exclusively, and fasted one day each week to develop greater comfort with hunger and discomfort. These practices were not exercises in self-punishment but rather a methodical approach to expanding her capacity for enduring adversity. Each voluntary hardship was a small victory over the part of her mind that sought the path of least resistance, a gradual strengthening of the mental muscles that would be required for the trials ahead. The physical transformation was equally dramatic and deliberate. Working with Martinez and drawing on research into military conditioning programs, Sarah developed a training regimen that emphasized functional strength, cardiovascular endurance, and mental toughness over mere physical appearance. She studied the specific physical demands of SEAL training and designed her workouts to address each component systematically. Swimming became her primary focus, not just for cardiovascular fitness but as preparation for the water-based challenges that were central to naval special operations. The local public pool became her second home, where she spent hours developing the stroke efficiency and water confidence that would later prove crucial during the notorious drown-proofing exercises that eliminated many otherwise qualified candidates. Her approach to fitness was characterized by the same methodical intensity she brought to her academic work. She kept detailed logs of every workout, tracking improvements and identifying weaknesses with the precision of a scientist conducting research. Pain became not an obstacle to overcome but information to be processed and utilized in the pursuit of greater capability. The mental conditioning was perhaps the most crucial aspect of her preparation, though it was also the most difficult to quantify and measure. She developed meditation practices that improved her ability to remain calm and focused under stress, studied combat psychology to understand how fear and pressure affected performance, and practiced visualization techniques that allowed her to mentally rehearse challenging scenarios before encountering them in reality. Reading became a form of tactical preparation as she immersed herself in accounts of military operations, leadership challenges, and the psychology of peak performance. The works of military leaders, philosophers, and athletes provided her with a framework for understanding how excellence was developed and maintained under the most demanding circumstances. By the time she graduated from high school, Sarah had transformed herself from a struggling student in worn clothing into a focused, disciplined, and supremely prepared candidate for military service. Her grades earned her acceptance to several universities, but her goal had never wavered from military service. She enlisted in the Navy immediately after graduation, beginning the next phase of her journey toward the seemingly impossible goal of becoming a SEAL. Boot camp at Naval Training Center Great Lakes was designed to break down civilian mentalities and rebuild them according to military standards, but, for Sarah, the experience was less about transformation than about validation. The physical demands that left many of her fellow recruits struggling were manageable challenges that she had prepared for extensively. The mental pressure and constant evaluation that caused others to question their decisions only reinforced her confidence in the path she had chosen. Her performance during basic training was exceptional, earning her recognition from instructors who were not easily impressed. More importantly, it demonstrated to herself that her years of preparation had been effective and that her goal of joining the special operations community was not merely a fantasy but an achievable objective. The assignment to Naval Station Norfolk following boot camp provided her with the opportunity to begin the formal process of applying for special operations training. The screening process was exhaustive, involving psychological evaluations, physical testing, medical examinations, and extensive background investigations. Each stage of the process was designed to identify and eliminate candidates who lacked the mental, physical, or emotional resilience required for the demands of special operations service. During this period, Sarah encountered the fourth significant shower of shame that would ultimately fuel her determination to reach even greater heights. The psychological evaluation included sessions with military psychiatrists who were tasked with identifying potential weaknesses or instabilities that might surface under the extreme stress of special operations training and combat deployment. One particular psychiatrist, Dr. Robert Harrison, seemed determined to find disqualifying factors in her psychological profile. During their third session, he leaned forward across his desk, his expression skeptical as he reviewed her file. "Petty Officer Vasquez," he began, his tone suggesting skepticism rather than genuine inquiry, "your background indicates a pattern of seeking extremely challenging situations and pushing yourself beyond normal limits. Some might view this as admirable dedication, but it could also indicate underlying psychological issues. An excessive need to prove yourself, perhaps stemming from childhood trauma or insecurity." Sarah maintained her composure, though she felt the familiar sensation of being judged and found lacking based on assumptions rather than evidence. "With respect, sir, I would argue that seeking challenges and pushing beyond normal limits is exactly what special operations requires. My motivation comes from a desire to serve at the highest level, not from psychological trauma." Harrison's smile carried the same condescending quality she had encountered with the recruiter years earlier. "Young woman, the psychological profile of successful special operations personnel is very specific. The extreme stress, the violence, the isolation, these are not environments that women have traditionally thrived in, regardless of their motivation or preparation. Perhaps you might consider how your skills could be better utilized in roles that are more appropriate." The word appropriate hung in the air like an accusation, carrying with it centuries of assumptions about women's limitations and proper roles. Sarah felt the anger rising within her, but this time it was not the helpless fury of a child being dismissed, but the cold, focused determination of a warrior who had been underestimated by someone who would soon learn the cost of such misjudgments. "Dr. Harrison," she replied, her voice level and professional, "I appreciate your concern, but I believe that appropriateness should be determined by capability and performance, not by traditional assumptions. I'm prepared to demonstrate my suitability through any evaluation process the Navy deems necessary." The psychological evaluation ultimately concluded that she was psychologically fit for special operations training, though Harrison's final report included reservations about her excessive determination and unrealistic goals. Years later, after Sarah had not only completed SEAL training but had risen to command positions, she would reflect on how often what appeared to be weaknesses in the eyes of others became the very strengths that enabled extraordinary achievement. The formal beginning of her special operations journey came with her acceptance into Naval Special Warfare Preparatory School, a grueling 8-week program designed to prepare candidates for the even more demanding Basic Underwater Demolition/SEAL Training, BUD/S. The preparatory course was itself a significant challenge, with a washout rate of approximately 40%, but it served as Sarah's first opportunity to train alongside the caliber of individuals who were pursuing the same seemingly impossible goal. Her classmates were predominantly men who had been star athletes, military academy graduates, or prior service Marines and soldiers with combat experience. Many had advantages in terms of physical size, natural athletic ability, or previous military training that Sarah lacked. However, her years of methodical preparation had developed something that could not be measured in bench press numbers or running times: an unshakable mental toughness that thrived under pressure and grew stronger in the face of adversity. The instructors at the preparatory school were former SEALs whose job was to identify weaknesses that would become fatal flaws during BUD/S training. They pushed every candidate beyond their comfort zones, looking for signs of the mental breaking points that would lead to voluntary withdrawal or failure under pressure. For many of Sarah's classmates, this was their first encounter with truly overwhelming physical and mental stress applied simultaneously over extended periods. Sarah's response to the escalating demands was precisely what her years of preparation had been designed to develop. She became calmer and more focused as the pressure increased. While others struggled with fatigue, self-doubt, and the temptation to quit, she found herself entering a state of flow where challenges became opportunities to demonstrate her capabilities rather than obstacles to overcome. The swimming portions of the preparatory course were where her extensive training became most apparent. While other candidates struggled with water confidence or stroke efficiency, Sarah moved through the water with the ease of someone who had spent thousands of hours developing aquatic skills. Her performance in the pool began to earn grudging respect from instructors who had initially viewed her participation with skepticism. The running and calisthenics portions of training presented different challenges, as Sarah's smaller size meant that she had to work harder than larger candidates to meet certain standards. However, her approach to these challenges demonstrated the mental strategies that would later serve her throughout her special operations career. Instead of viewing her size as a disadvantage, she leveraged her lower body weight to excel in endurance events and developed technique improvements that allowed her to meet strength standards through efficiency rather than raw power. Perhaps most importantly, the preparatory course provided her with the opportunity to observe and learn from the training methods that produced successful special operations personnel. She studied the instructors' techniques for developing mental toughness, noted the physical and psychological factors that led to success or failure among her classmates, and continued refining her own approach to performance under pressure. The graduation from preparatory school marked her qualification to attend BUD/S training, the legendary 24-week program that would either transform her into a Navy SEAL or eliminate her from the special operations community entirely. The statistics were sobering: fewer than 20% of candidates who began BUD/S would successfully complete all phases of training and earn the coveted SEAL Trident insignia. BUD/S training began in Coronado, California, at Naval Special Warfare Command, where the Pacific Ocean provided the backdrop for the most demanding military training program in the world. The first phase of training, known as conditioning, was designed to establish the physical and mental baseline required for special operations service through 8 weeks of progressively increasing stress and demands. The first week of BUD/S was a carefully orchestrated assault on the candidates' comfort zones and preconceptions about their own limitations. The instructors, known as cadre, were combat-experienced SEALs whose job was to create an environment of controlled chaos that would reveal each candidate's true character under pressure. Physical training sessions that began before dawn and extended into the evening were punctuated by inspections, academic classes, and psychological pressure designed to create constant stress. Sarah's approach to this initial phase was informed by her years of mental preparation and her understanding that the training was designed to be overwhelming. Instead of trying to merely survive each day's challenges, she focused on maintaining her standards and helping her classmates whenever possible. This approach served dual purposes. It reinforced her own commitment to excellence while building the team relationships that would become crucial during the most difficult phases of training. The physical demands of first phase pushed every candidate beyond their previous limits, but Sarah's systematic preparation had developed her capacity for sustained high-level performance. The daily sessions of calisthenics, running, swimming, and obstacle coursework were brutal, but they represented the culmination of years of progressive physical development rather than a sudden shock to an unprepared system. The psychological pressure was more complex and potentially more dangerous than the physical challenges. The cadre used a variety of techniques to create stress and identify mental weaknesses that would compromise operational effectiveness. Constant evaluation, unpredictable changes in requirements, and deliberate humiliation were all tools designed to separate those with superficial motivation from those with the deep resilience required for special operations service. During the second week of first phase, Sarah encountered what would become the most significant shower of shame in her journey, an incident that would ultimately transform her understanding of her own strength and purpose. The day began with a pre-dawn ocean swim in water temperatures that hovered around 60 degrees, followed by a series of timed beach runs and calisthenics sessions that left the entire class exhausted and coated with sand. The afternoon brought one of the most feared elements of BUD/S training, surf passage, where candidates were required to work in boat crews to navigate their rigid inflatable boats through the Pacific surf zone. The exercise was designed to develop teamwork and water confidence while subjecting the crews to constant soaking in cold water and the physical punishment of being repeatedly thrown around by powerful waves. Sarah's boat crew consisted of 6 other candidates, including several who had been struggling with the water-based portions of training and were beginning to show signs of the mental fatigue that often preceded voluntary withdrawal from the program. As the afternoon progressed and the ocean conditions became more challenging, her crew began to fall behind the performance standards expected by the instructors. Instructor Chief Petty Officer Marcus Rivera, a veteran SEAL with 3 combat deployments and a reputation for identifying and eliminating weak candidates, focused his attention on Sarah's struggling crew. Rivera was not motivated by personal animosity but by a professional obligation to ensure that only candidates with the mental toughness required for combat operations would advance through training. Boat Crew 4, Rivera's voice carried easily over the sound of crashing waves. You're performing like a group of weekend warriors on a pleasure cruise. Vasquez, as the senior member of your crew, you're responsible for their failures as well as your own. The designation of responsibility was both an honor and a burden. It indicated that the instructors viewed her as a potential leader, but it also meant that her continued participation in training was now linked to the performance of team members who were struggling with their own challenges. The weight of this responsibility was compounded by the knowledge that several of her crew members were beginning to question their own commitment to completing the program. The crisis came during a particularly difficult surf passage evolution when one of her crew members, seaman recruit David Chen, was knocked unconscious by a wave and had to be pulled from the water by safety personnel. While Chen was ultimately uninjured, the incident shook the confidence of the entire crew and led to a performance breakdown that drew the focused attention of the entire cadre. Rivera's response was swift and public. Boat Crew 4, you will now demonstrate water confidence by remaining in the surf zone until further notice. Since you cannot function as a team during the exercise, perhaps extended exposure to the environment will help you find the motivation to improve your performance. The punishment, known as surf torture among BUD/S candidates, involved sitting in the surf zone while waves continuously crashed over the crew, gradually lowering their body temperatures and testing their mental resolve. The exercise was carefully monitored by safety personnel to prevent hypothermia, but it was designed to be extremely uncomfortable and psychologically challenging. After 30 minutes in the frigid water, with her crew members beginning to show signs of serious distress and the instructors showing no indication of ending the punishment, Sarah made a decision that would define not only her own future but her understanding of leadership under extreme pressure. She stood up in the surf zone, her body shaking from cold but her voice clear and strong as she addressed Rivera directly. "Chief Rivera," she called out, her words carrying over the sound of the waves, "respectfully request permission to speak." Rivera's expression revealed nothing as he approached the water's edge, but the attention of the entire class was now focused on the exchange that was about to take place. In the hierarchy of BUD/S training, challenging an instructor's decisions was an extremely risky action that could result in immediate dismissal from the program. "Speak, Vasquez," Rivera replied, his tone neutral but his eyes assessing her mental state with the professional evaluation of a combat veteran. "Chief, my crew is struggling because they're focused on their individual performance rather than functioning as a unit. The punishment is affecting their confidence rather than building it. Request permission to continue the surf torture alone while my crew returns to training. I take full responsibility for their performance failures." The request was unprecedented in Rivera's experience as a BUD/S instructor. Candidates typically try to minimize their exposure to punishment rather than voluntarily accepting additional suffering on behalf of their teammates. The psychology behind Sarah's request demonstrated exactly the kind of leadership mentality and team focus that the SEAL community sought to develop. Rivera studied her for a long moment, considering the implications of her request and its potential impact on both Sarah's development and the training of the entire class. "Negative, Vasquez. Your crew earned this punishment as a team, and they will complete it as a team. However, your willingness to accept additional responsibility has been noted." The surf torture continued for another hour, testing the limits of the crew's endurance and mental resilience. During this time, Sarah focused on maintaining the morale and cohesion of her team members, providing encouragement and motivation even as her own physical condition deteriorated in the cold water. Her approach transformed the punishment from a test of individual endurance into an exercise in collective resilience and mutual support. When Rivera finally called an end to the exercise, Sarah's crew staggered from the water as a more cohesive unit than when they had entered. The experience had bonded them through shared adversity and demonstrated that their collective strength was greater than the sum of their individual capabilities. More importantly, Sarah had discovered something fundamental about her own character, that her greatest strength lay not in personal achievement but in her ability to elevate the performance of those around her. That evening, during the personal time when candidates were allowed to rest and recover from the day's training, Rivera approached Sarah privately for a conversation that would profoundly influence her understanding of her own potential and purpose. "Vasquez," Rivera began, his demeanor less formal than during training hours but retaining the serious tone of a professional evaluation, "today's events revealed something important about your character. The willingness to accept responsibility for others and to voluntarily endure additional hardship for the benefit of your team, these are qualities that define exceptional military leaders." Sarah maintained her respectful attention, though she was curious about the purpose of the private discussion. "Thank you, Chief. My crew members are good people who are giving their best effort. They deserve support rather than individual blame for collective challenges." Rivera nodded approvingly. That perspective is exactly what separates leaders from followers. However, you need to understand that the challenges you face here are nothing compared to what you will encounter in combat operations. The ability to maintain that leadership mentality when lives are at stake, when the pressure is overwhelming, and when failure means more than just personal disappointment, that is what we are ultimately training for. The conversation continued for nearly an hour, during which Rivera shared his own experiences of combat leadership and the lessons he had learned about the qualities that enabled some individuals to excel under the most extreme circumstances. His insights provided Sarah with a framework for understanding not just the tactical requirements of Special Operations Service, but the deeper psychological and emotional demands that separated truly exceptional operators from those who merely met minimum standards. The remainder of first phase training was characterized by steadily escalating demands and the gradual elimination of candidates who could not adapt to the increasing stress. Sarah's performance remained consistently excellent, but, more importantly, her approach to leadership and team building earned the respect of both her classmates and the instructors. She had unconsciously begun the process of transforming from a high-performing individual into someone capable of elevating the performance of entire units. The culmination of first phase was Hell Week, a 5.5-day period of continuous training with minimal sleep and maximum physical and psychological stress. Hell Week was designed to simulate the extreme conditions of combat operations while identifying candidates with the mental toughness required for the most demanding missions. The statistics were sobering: approximately 60% of candidates who reached Hell Week would voluntarily withdraw before its completion. Hell Week began on a Sunday evening with Breakout, a carefully orchestrated introduction to sleep deprivation and sustained high-stress training. Candidates were awakened by explosions, machine gun fire, and screaming instructors who immediately began 5 days of the most intensive training program in the military. The purpose was not to torture the candidates but to compress months of psychological development into a concentrated period that would reveal each individual's true capacity for performance under extreme duress. The physical challenges of Hell Week were extraordinary. Candidates would complete hundreds of miles of running, swimming, and boat work while carrying heavy equipment and performing complex tactical exercises. However, the psychological challenges were even more demanding, as sleep deprivation and constant stress combined to create hallucinations, confusion, and the overwhelming temptation to quit and return to normal life. Sarah's approach to Hell Week was informed by her years of mental preparation and her understanding that the training was designed to push her beyond her perceived limitations. Instead of viewing each evolution as a separate challenge to survive, she focused on the systematic application of the mental techniques she had developed over years of deliberate practice. Visualization, controlled breathing, positive self-talk, and disciplined focus became tools that allowed her to maintain high performance even as her physical condition deteriorated. The boat work portions of Hell Week were where Sarah's preparation and leadership abilities became most apparent. The rigid inflatable boats used in training weighed several hundred pounds and required coordinated effort from entire boat crews to transport across long distances on the beach. As fatigue and sleep deprivation affected the decision-making abilities of her crew members, Sarah's capacity for maintaining focus and providing clear direction became crucial to their collective success. During the second night of Hell Week, while carrying their boat across soft sand in complete darkness, Sarah's crew began to lose cohesion as individual members struggled with their own physical and mental limitations. The boat was becoming progressively heavier as sand accumulated in its interior, and the pace of movement was slowing to the point where they were falling behind the required timeline. "Listen to my voice," Sarah called out to her crew, her words cutting through their fatigue and confusion. "We're going to establish a rhythm and maintain it regardless of how tired we feel. Everyone focus on the person in front of them and match their pace. We succeed or fail as a unit." Her ability to provide clear direction and maintain morale during this critical moment exemplified the leadership qualities that the SEAL community sought to develop. Instead of allowing the crew to fragment into individuals focused on their own struggles, she maintained their identity as a functional team capable of accomplishing their mission despite adverse conditions. The remainder of Hell Week tested every aspect of Sarah's preparation and character, but she had unconsciously begun operating in a state of enhanced performance that transcended normal limitations. The combination of physical conditioning, mental training, and leadership focus created a synergistic effect that allowed her to not only survive the most demanding military training program but to excel within it. The completion of Hell Week marked a fundamental transformation in Sarah's understanding of her own capabilities and potential. The person who emerged from 5 days of continuous training was not merely someone who had endured extreme hardship, but someone who had discovered the capacity for sustained peak performance under the most adverse conditions imaginable. More importantly, she had proven to herself and others that her goal of becoming a SEAL was not merely achievable but that she possessed the qualities necessary to excel in the special operations community. The transition from first phase to second phase of BUD/S training brought new challenges focused on combat diving and underwater operations. The skills taught during this phase were highly technical and required absolute precision, as mistakes during combat diving could be fatal for operators and their teammates. The psychological pressure shifted from the raw physical and mental stress of first phase to the exacting standards and life-or-death precision required for underwater operations. Sarah's extensive swimming preparation proved invaluable during second phase, but the technical diving skills required a different kind of mastery. Combat diving involved complex calculations for gas consumption, depth limitations, and decompression requirements, all of which had to be performed accurately under stress and in challenging environmental conditions. The margin for error was essentially zero, as dive accidents during training or operations could result in serious injury or death. The pool training sessions were conducted in a controlled environment, but they simulated the extreme stress and equipment failures that operators might encounter during combat missions. Candidates were required to solve problems underwater while maintaining their composure and making correct decisions despite simulated emergencies designed to test their mental resilience and technical competence. During one particularly challenging training session, Sarah encountered an equipment failure that tested both her technical skills and her capacity for remaining calm under life-threatening stress. The exercise involved a long-duration dive using rebreathing equipment that recycled exhaled air through chemical scrubbers, allowing for extended underwater operations without the telltale bubble trail of conventional scuba equipment. 30 minutes into the dive, while performing underwater navigation exercises at the bottom of the training pool, Sarah's rebreathing unit began malfunctioning in a way that could have proven fatal in a real operational environment. The chemical scrubbers that removed carbon dioxide from her breathing circuit were not functioning properly, causing a dangerous buildup of CO2 that could lead to unconsciousness and drowning. The symptoms of carbon dioxide poisoning are insidious and can impair judgment before the victim realizes the severity of the situation. Sarah began to experience headache, confusion, and difficulty concentrating, all signs that her breathing gas was becoming dangerous. However, her years of mental training and her understanding of diving physiology allowed her to recognize the symptoms and take appropriate action. Instead of panicking or making a rapid ascent that could have caused additional complications, Sarah followed emergency procedures exactly as she had been trained. She signaled to the safety divers, performed a controlled ascent to the surface, and switched to emergency breathing equipment while maintaining her composure throughout the evolution. Her response demonstrated the kind of technical competence and mental discipline that were required for combat diving operations. Instructor Petty Officer First Class Amanda Torres, a former SEAL dive supervisor with extensive operational experience, debriefed the incident with Sarah immediately after the training session. Torres was responsible for ensuring that only candidates with the technical skills and mental resilience required for combat diving would advance to third phase training. Vasquez, Torres began, her tone reflecting professional respect for Sarah's performance during the emergency. Your response to the equipment failure was textbook perfect. You recognized the symptoms, followed procedures, and maintained your composure throughout. That kind of performance could save lives during operational missions. Sarah appreciated the feedback, but she was more interested in understanding how she could improve her performance and avoid similar situations in the future. Petty Officer Torres, was there anything in my pre-dive equipment check that should have identified the potential for this failure? Torres' expression reflected approval for Sarah's focus on continuous improvement rather than self-congratulation for her successful emergency response. The equipment failure was deliberately induced as part of the training evolution. We need to ensure that candidates can respond appropriately to emergencies that may occur during operations. Your question about prevention demonstrates the right mindset for a combat diver. The conversation evolved into an extensive discussion of diving physiology, equipment reliability, and the decision-making processes that enabled safe and effective underwater operations. Torres shared her own experiences of diving incidents during operational missions and the lessons she had learned about maintaining safety while accomplishing complex tactical objectives. The technical training of second phase was complemented by continued physical conditioning and the introduction of tactical concepts that would become central to third phase training. Combat diving was not merely about underwater movement but about the application of specialized skills to accomplish military objectives that could not be achieved through conventional means. The psychological demands of operating underwater in hostile environments required a different kind of mental toughness than the raw endurance focus of first phase. Sarah's performance during second phase was exceptional, not just in terms of technical competence but in her approach to learning and applying complex skills under pressure. She had developed the ability to maintain absolute focus during demanding evolutions while simultaneously processing new information and adapting to changing circumstances. This capacity for sustained high-level cognitive performance under stress would become one of her defining characteristics as a special operations professional. The transition to third phase brought the introduction of weapons training, small unit tactics, and the operational skills that would define her effectiveness as a SEAL operator. The training environment shifted from the controlled conditions of pool work and physical conditioning to realistic tactical scenarios that simulated the complexity and uncertainty of combat operations. Candidates were required to integrate their physical capabilities, technical skills, and tactical knowledge into coherent operational performance. The weapons training portion of third phase was comprehensive and demanding, covering everything from basic marksmanship to complex tactical shooting scenarios that required split-second decision-making under pressure. Sarah's smaller physical size required her to develop shooting techniques that maximized accuracy and speed while accommodating differences in grip strength and weapon control compared to larger operators. Her approach to weapons training exemplified the methodical preparation that had characterized her entire journey. She studied ballistics, weapon systems, and shooting psychology with the same intensity that she had applied to diving physics and physical conditioning. Practice sessions extended well beyond the minimum requirements as she worked to develop the unconscious competence that would be required during high-stress operational situations. The tactical training scenarios were designed to test candidates' ability to apply their skills in complex, dynamic situations that simulated the challenges of real combat operations. Small unit tactics required seamless coordination between team members, accurate decision-making under pressure, and the ability to adapt to rapidly changing circumstances while maintaining focus on mission objectives. During one particularly challenging tactical exercise, Sarah's unit was tasked with conducting a simulated direct action mission against a fortified position defended by opposing force personnel. The exercise required careful planning, coordinated movement, and precise execution under time pressure and simulated enemy contact. The scenario was designed to test every aspect of the candidate's training while identifying their capacity for operational thinking and tactical leadership. Sarah's role in the exercise was as the unit's designated marksman, responsible for providing precision fire support during the assault phase of the operation. The position required her to maintain observation of the target area, identify and engage specific threats, and communicate effectively with the assault element while managing her own movement and security. The exercise began with a detailed planning phase where the unit analyzed the target, developed courses of action, and rehearsed their execution until every team member understood their role and the contingencies that might arise during the operation. Sarah's contributions during planning demonstrated her ability to think tactically and identify potential problems before they could affect mission success. The execution phase tested the unit's ability to translate their planning into effective action under the stress and uncertainty of simulated combat. As the unit moved toward the objective, they encountered unexpected obstacles and defensive positions that required immediate adaptation of their original plan. Sarah's performance during these moments of crisis demonstrated her capacity for tactical thinking and rapid decision-making under pressure. When the assault element encountered stronger than expected resistance during their approach to the objective, Sarah identified additional enemy positions that had not been apparent during the planning phase. Her ability to rapidly assess the new tactical situation and provide accurate fire support was crucial to the unit's successful completion of their mission. Vasquez called out the unit leader over the tactical radio, his voice carrying the stress of simulated combat. "We need suppressive fires on the building's second floor, northwest window. Multiple targets engaging our advance." Sarah's response demonstrated the integration of technical skills and tactical awareness that defined effective special operations personnel. She rapidly identified the target location, calculated the range and environmental factors affecting her shot placement, and engaged the simulated enemy positions with precision fires that allowed the assault element to continue their advance. The exercise concluded with a detailed debrief that analyzed every aspect of the unit's performance and identified areas for improvement in future operations. Instructor Master Chief Petty Officer Robert Sullivan, a veteran of multiple combat deployments and an expert in small unit tactics, led the analysis with the thoroughness of someone who understood that training deficiencies could become fatal errors during operational missions. The unit's performance was solid, Sullivan began, his assessment carrying the weight of extensive combat experience, but there were several moments where better communication and coordination could have improved effectiveness and reduced risk. Vasquez, your target identification and engagement were excellent, but your position selection left you exposed to flanking movements from the north. The feedback was delivered in the constructive manner that characterized effective military training, identifying both strengths and weaknesses while providing specific recommendations for improvement. Sarah absorbed the critique with the same intensity that she brought to all aspects of her development, recognizing that continuous learning and adaptation were essential for operational effectiveness. The remainder of third phase involved increasingly complex training scenarios that integrated all aspects of SEAL operations, including maritime operations, small unit tactics, weapons employment, and mission planning. Each evolution was designed to test candidates' mastery of individual skills while developing their ability to function effectively as members of elite operational teams. The culmination of BUD/S training came with the final tactical exercise, a multi-day operation that required candidates to plan and execute a complex mission under realistic conditions with minimal instructor guidance. The exercise served as the ultimate test of their transformation from individual candidates into capable special operations professionals ready for advanced training and eventual operational deployment. Sarah's performance during the final exercise demonstrated the complete integration of all the skills and mental attributes she had developed throughout her journey. Her tactical awareness, technical competence, physical capabilities, and leadership qualities combined to create an operator capable of excelling in the most demanding special operations environment. More importantly, she had proven that excellence was not determined by traditional physical advantages but by the systematic development of skills, mental toughness, and the unwavering commitment to continuous improvement. The graduation ceremony for BUD/S Class 247 took place on a bright Friday morning in Coronado, with families, friends, and military leaders gathered to witness the transformation of ordinary individuals into Navy SEALs. Of the 180 candidates who had begun training 6 months earlier, only 23 had successfully completed all phases of the program and earned the right to wear the SEAL Trident insignia. Sarah stood at attention with her classmates as Admiral Patricia Hayes, commander of Naval Special Warfare Command, addressed the graduating class. Admiral Hayes was herself a pioneer who had broken barriers in naval aviation before transitioning to leadership roles in the special operations community, and her presence at the ceremony carried special significance for Sarah's own journey. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Hayes began, her voice carrying clearly across the assembled crowd, "you represent the culmination of the most demanding military training program in the world. You have proven that you possess the physical capabilities, technical skills, mental toughness, and moral character required for special operations service. However, graduation from BUD/S is not an endpoint but a beginning." The Admiral's words reflected the reality that earning the SEAL Trident was merely the first step in a career-long journey of learning, growth, and service. The advanced training that lay ahead would develop specialized skills in areas such as advanced weapons systems, foreign languages, parachuting, and combat medicine. More importantly, operational deployments would test their abilities in real-world situations where the stakes were not training scores but mission success and the safety of their teammates. When Admiral Hayes pinned the SEAL Trident on Sarah's uniform, the moment represented more than personal achievement. It was the culmination of a systematic transformation that had destroyed her weak self and forged an unbreakable warrior identity. The young woman who had once stood in a shower of shame, overwhelmed by others' low expectations and limited thinking, had become someone capable of excelling in the most elite military community in the world. The celebration that followed graduation was meaningful but brief, as Sarah understood that her journey was far from complete. The advanced training pipeline that lay ahead would develop her specialized skills and prepare her for operational deployment with an active SEAL team. Each phase of advanced training would present new challenges and opportunities for growth, building upon the foundation established during BUD/S to create highly capable special operations professionals. The transition to operational training brought Sarah to Naval Amphibious Base Little Creek in Virginia, where she would spend the next 8 months developing the advanced skills required for modern special operations. The training was more specialized and focused than BUD/S, concentrating on specific technical competencies rather than the general development of mental and physical toughness that had characterized basic training. Her first assignment was to the Naval Special Warfare Advanced Technical Training Program, where she would develop expertise in specialized skills such as military freefall parachuting, advanced diving operations, and specialized weapons systems. The technical demands of these skills required absolute precision and extensive practice to achieve the unconscious competence necessary for operational effectiveness. The military freefall training was conducted at Yuma Proving Ground in Arizona, where candidates learned to conduct high-altitude parachute operations that allowed covert insertion into operational areas. The training required mastery of complex equipment, precise body positioning during freefall, and accurate navigation to designated landing areas, all while carrying operational equipment and preparing for immediate tactical action upon landing. Sarah's approach to parachute training exemplified her systematic methodology for mastering complex skills. She studied aerodynamics, weather patterns, and navigation techniques with the same intensity that had characterized her preparation for BUD/S. Practice jumps were analyzed in detail, with careful attention to body position, fall rate, and navigation accuracy, allowing for continuous refinement of her performance. During her 15th training jump, Sarah encountered a parachute malfunction that required immediate emergency procedures to prevent a potentially fatal accident. The main parachute had deployed improperly, creating an unstable configuration that could not be controlled for safe landing. Emergency procedures required cutting away the malfunctioning main parachute and deploying the reserve parachute while maintaining enough altitude for proper deployment and navigation to a safe landing area. The emergency unfolded at 8,000 feet altitude, giving Sarah less than 60 seconds to recognize the malfunction, execute emergency procedures, and prepare for landing with her reserve parachute. The psychological pressure of the situation was enormous. Any mistake in executing the emergency procedures could result in serious injury or death, but hesitation could be equally dangerous as altitude was rapidly decreasing. Sarah's response demonstrated the mental discipline and technical competence that had been developed throughout her training. She recognized the malfunction immediately, executed the cutaway procedures exactly as trained, and deployed her reserve parachute with calm precision. Her navigation to the designated landing area was accurate despite the stress of the emergency, and her landing was executed safely with no injury or equipment damage. Instructor Sergeant First Class Miguel Rodriguez, a Special Forces parachutist with extensive operational experience, debriefed the incident with Sarah immediately after her landing. Rodriguez was responsible for ensuring that only candidates with the mental toughness and technical skills required for operational parachuting would advance to team assignments. Rodriguez began, his tone reflecting professional respect for her performance during the emergency. Your response to the malfunction was perfect. You recognized the problem quickly, executed procedures correctly, and maintained your composure throughout. That kind of performance under pressure is exactly what we need for operational missions. Sarah's focus remained on learning from the experience and improving her future performance. Sergeant Rodriguez, was there anything in my equipment inspection or preparation that could have prevented the malfunction? Rodriguez nodded approvingly at her question. The malfunction was equipment-related and not preventable through better inspection. However, your question demonstrates the right mindset for operational parachuting. We can never eliminate all risks, but we can always improve our preparation and response to unexpected situations. The conversation evolved into an extensive discussion of parachute systems, emergency procedures, and the decision-making processes that enabled safe and effective airborne operations. Rodriguez shared his own experiences of parachute emergencies during operational missions and the lessons he had learned about maintaining safety while accomplishing tactical objectives in challenging environments. The advanced diving training that followed parachute school was even more technically demanding, focusing on closed-circuit rebreathing systems that allowed for covert underwater operations without the bubble signatures that could compromise mission security. The training required mastery of complex gas mixing procedures, precise depth and time calculations, and emergency procedures for equipment failures that could occur during extended underwater missions. The psychological demands of closed-circuit diving were substantial, as operators were required to remain underwater for extended periods while managing complex equipment and maintaining awareness of their gas consumption, depth limitations, and tactical objectives. Equipment failures during operational missions could be fatal, making absolute technical competence and calm decision-making essential for survival and mission success. Sarah's performance during advanced diving training was exceptional, building upon the foundation established during BUD/S second phase to develop expertise in the most sophisticated underwater systems available to Special Operations Forces. Her systematic approach to learning complex technical skills and her ability to remain calm under pressure made her a standout performer in a program where technical precision was essential. The weapons training portion of advanced training was comprehensive and sophisticated, covering advanced marksmanship, specialized weapon systems, and tactical employment of supporting weapons such as machine guns, grenade launchers, and precision rifles. The training emphasized not just individual shooting skills but the integration of fires with small unit tactics to create effective combat capabilities. Sarah's smaller physical size required creative approaches to some weapon systems, but her marksmanship skills and tactical understanding more than compensated for any physical limitations. Her ability to accurately engage targets under stress and coordinate fires with team movements made her a valuable asset during tactical exercises and later operational deployments. The culmination of advanced training was a comprehensive exercise that tested all the specialized skills candidates had developed during their 8 months of intensive technical training. The exercise required integration of parachuting, diving, weapons employment, and tactical operations in a complex scenario that simulated the demands of real special operations missions. Sarah's performance during the final exercise demonstrated complete mastery of the technical skills and tactical concepts that define modern special operations. More importantly, her approach to problem-solving, leadership, and team coordination indicated her potential for continued growth and advancement within the special operations community. The completion of advanced training marked her qualification for assignment to an operational SEAL team, where she would apply her skills in real-world missions and continue developing through operational experience. The assignment process considered her technical specialties, leadership potential, and the operational requirements of various SEAL teams deployed around the world. Her assignment to SEAL Team 6, the Navy's premier counter-terrorism unit, represented recognition of her exceptional performance throughout training and her potential for handling the most demanding operational missions. SEAL Team 6 was tasked with the most sensitive and challenging special operations missions, requiring operators with the highest levels of technical competence, mental toughness, and tactical expertise. The integration into an operational team brought new challenges as Sarah transitioned from the structured environment of training to the dynamic and unpredictable world of real special operations. Her teammates were combat veterans with extensive operational experience, and earning their respect and acceptance required proving herself through performance rather than training credentials. Her first operational deployment was to Afghanistan, where SEAL Team 6 was conducting direct action missions against high-value terrorist targets. The operational environment was complex and dangerous, with sophisticated enemy tactics and the constant threat of improvised explosive devices, small arms fire, and indirect attacks on coalition forces. Sarah's role during the deployment was as a breacher and precision marksman, responsible for gaining entry to target buildings and providing accurate supporting fires during assault operations. The missions required careful planning, coordinated execution, and split-second decision-making in chaotic and dangerous situations where mistakes could result in American casualties or mission failure. Her first combat operation was a direct action mission against a Taliban commander who was responsible for coordinating attacks on coalition forces. The target was located in a fortified compound in a remote area of Afghanistan, requiring helicopter insertion and coordinated assault by multiple SEAL elements. The mission planning process was exhaustive, with detailed analysis of intelligence, enemy capabilities, and potential contingencies. The execution phase tested every aspect of Sarah's training and preparation. The helicopter insertion was conducted under darkness and potential enemy observation, requiring precise navigation and coordination between air and ground elements. The assault on the target compound involved breaching operations, close-quarters combat, and evidence collection under time pressure and the constant threat of enemy reinforcement. Sarah's performance during the operation was exceptional. Her breaching operations enabled rapid entry into the target building, her marksmanship skills proved crucial during contact with enemy forces, and her tactical awareness helped identify additional intelligence that enhanced the mission's overall success. More importantly, her composure under fire and focus on mission accomplishment earned the respect of her experienced teammates. The post-mission debrief was conducted by the team leader, Lieutenant Commander James Mitchell, a veteran of multiple combat deployments with extensive experience in counter-terrorism operations. Mitchell's assessment carried significant weight in determining Sarah's future role within the team and her potential for advancement to leadership positions. Vasquez, Mitchell began, his tone reflecting professional respect for her combat performance. "Your execution during tonight's operation was outstanding. Your breaching work was fast and accurate, your shooting was precise under pressure, and your tactical awareness contributed to the mission's success. You performed like a veteran operator despite this being your first combat operation. Sarah appreciated the feedback but remained focused on learning from the experience and improving her future performance.
Thank you, sir. Were there any aspects of my performance that could be improved for future operations? Mitchell nodded approvingly. Your question demonstrates the right mindset for continuous improvement. One area for development is communication during high-stress phases of operations. Your tactical awareness was excellent, but sharing that information more quickly with the team could enhance our collective effectiveness. The feedback led to an extensive discussion of communication procedures, tactical decision-making, and the lessons learned from the operation that could be applied to future missions. Mitchell shared his own experiences of combat leadership and the continuous learning process that defined effective special operations professionals. The remainder of the deployment involved increasingly complex missions that tested every aspect of Sarah's capabilities and continued her development as a combat operator. Each operation provided new challenges and learning opportunities, building upon her training foundation to create genuine operational expertise developed through real-world application. Her performance throughout the deployment was consistently exceptional, earning recognition from her teammates and superiors for her technical competence, tactical awareness, and mental toughness under pressure. More importantly, she had proven that her goal of excelling in special operations was not merely achievable but that she possessed the qualities necessary for continued advancement and leadership within the community. The return from deployment marked the beginning of a new phase in Sarah's career as she was selected for advanced leadership training and potential promotion to non-commissioned officer positions. Her performance record indicated strong potential for leadership roles that would allow her to influence the development and training of future SEAL operators. The advanced leadership course was conducted at Naval Special Warfare Command and focused on the tactical, technical, and leadership skills required for small unit leadership in special operations. The training emphasized decision-making under pressure, tactical planning and execution, and the personnel management skills necessary for leading elite operators in demanding environments. Sarah's approach to leadership training was informed by her understanding that effective leadership in special operations required more than just technical competence or tactical knowledge. The most challenging aspect of leadership was the ability to make difficult decisions under pressure while maintaining the confidence and support of highly capable operators who had their own opinions about the best courses of action. The practical leadership exercises placed candidates in charge of complex tactical scenarios where they were responsible for planning, coordinating, and executing missions while managing the personalities and capabilities of their assigned team members. The scenarios were designed to test decision-making under pressure and the ability to adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining team cohesion and mission focus. During one particularly challenging exercise, Sarah was placed in command of a simulated hostage rescue operation that required coordinated action by multiple elements under tight time constraints and significant uncertainty about enemy capabilities and hostage locations. The scenario was designed to test every aspect of tactical leadership while creating pressure that could lead to poor decision-making or loss of team confidence. The planning phase required Sarah to analyze limited intelligence, develop courses of action, and coordinate with supporting elements while maintaining awareness of time constraints that could affect mission success. Her approach demonstrated the systematic thinking and attention to detail that had characterized her performance throughout training and operations. The execution phase tested her ability to make rapid decisions as the situation developed and to maintain command and control over multiple elements operating in a dynamic and dangerous environment. When the initial plan encountered unexpected obstacles, Sarah's ability to adapt quickly while maintaining team coordination proved crucial to the mission's successful outcome. The exercise concluded with a comprehensive debrief that analyzed every aspect of Sarah's leadership performance and identified areas for continued development. The feedback was delivered by Captain Susan Walker, a former SEAL Team commanding officer with extensive experience in combat leadership and operator development. Sarah, Captain Walker began, her tone reflecting professional respect earned through observed performance. Your leadership during today's exercise was exceptional. Your planning was thorough, your decision-making under pressure was sound, and your ability to adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining team coordination demonstrated genuine leadership capability.
The positive feedback was accompanied by specific recommendations for continued development, focusing on communication techniques and delegation strategies that would become important as Sarah advanced to positions of greater responsibility. The discussion evolved into an extensive analysis of leadership challenges in special operations and the continuous learning process required for effective command in combat environments. The completion of leadership training marked Sarah's promotion to Petty Officer 2nd Class and her selection for assignment as a team leader within SEAL Team 6. The promotion represented recognition of her exceptional performance and her potential for continued advancement within the special operations community. More importantly, it provided her with the opportunity to influence the development and training of other operators while continuing her own professional growth. Her new role as team leader brought responsibilities for the tactical employment, training, and welfare of 12 highly experienced SEAL operators. The position required balancing the technical demands of mission planning and execution with the personnel management challenges of leading individuals who were themselves experts in special operations. The team leadership assignment coincided with a deployment to Iraq, where SEAL Team 6 was conducting counter-terrorism operations in support of coalition forces engaged in complex stability operations. The operational environment was characterized by sophisticated enemy tactics, urban terrain that favored defenders, and the constant threat of improvised explosive devices and indirect attacks. Sarah's first mission as team leader was a direct action operation against an insurgent cell that was responsible for coordinating attacks on coalition forces and Iraqi civilians. The target was located in a densely populated urban area, requiring careful planning to minimize civilian casualties while achieving tactical objectives. The mission planning process tested her ability to balance competing operational requirements while maintaining focus on mission success. The operation required helicopter insertion into a contested urban environment, coordinated movement through civilian areas to reach the target, and precise execution of assault operations in close proximity to non-combatants. The complexity of the tactical situation demanded effective leadership and split-second decision-making to ensure mission success while protecting both her operators and innocent civilians. Sarah's performance during the operation demonstrated the integration of technical competence and leadership capability that defined effective special operations commanders. Her tactical decisions were sound, her communication with team members was clear and timely, and her ability to adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining mission focus proved crucial to the operation's success. The post-mission debrief was conducted by the squadron commander, Commander Robert Hayes, a veteran of multiple combat deployments with extensive experience in evaluating operational leadership. Hayes' assessment would influence Sarah's future assignments and potential for advancement to positions of greater responsibility within the special operations community. Sarah, Hayes began, his tone reflecting professional respect for her combat leadership. Your performance as team leader during tonight's operation was outstanding. Your tactical decisions were sound, your leadership under pressure was effective, and your ability to balance operational objectives with force protection demonstrated genuine command capability. The feedback was particularly meaningful because it came from an experienced combat commander who understood the complexities of leading special operations forces in challenging environments. The discussion that followed provided Sarah with insights into the strategic and operational considerations that would become increasingly important as she advanced to positions of greater responsibility. The remainder of the deployment involved increasingly complex missions that tested every aspect of Sarah's leadership capabilities while continuing her development as a special operations commander. Each operation provided new challenges and learning opportunities, building upon her tactical expertise to develop genuine operational leadership skills. Her performance throughout the deployment was consistently exceptional, earning recognition from superiors and peers for her tactical competence, leadership effectiveness, and ability to accomplish challenging missions while maintaining the safety and welfare of her operators. The deployment established her reputation as one of the most capable young leaders in the special operations community. The return from deployment marked another significant milestone in Sarah's career as she was selected for promotion to Petty Officer 1st Class and assignment to the Advanced Special Operations Leadership Program. The program was designed to prepare selected operators for positions of senior leadership within the special operations community, focusing on strategic thinking, operational planning, and the complex leadership challenges associated with commanding elite units. The Advanced Leadership Program was conducted at the Joint Special Operations University and brought together selected officers and senior enlisted personnel from all special operations forces. The curriculum emphasized strategic thinking, joint operations, and the political and diplomatic considerations that affected special operations employment in modern conflicts. Sarah's participation in the program provided her with a broader perspective on special operations beyond the tactical focus of her previous training and experience. The exposure to strategic planning processes and joint operations concepts prepared her for positions where she would be required to coordinate with conventional forces and other government agencies while maintaining the unique capabilities that define special operations. The capstone exercise for the Advanced Leadership Program was a complex scenario that required participants to plan and coordinate a multi-service special operations campaign addressing a realistic strategic challenge. Sarah's role in the exercise was as the operational planning lead, responsible for developing courses of action that integrated the capabilities of different special operations forces while addressing political and diplomatic constraints. Her performance during the exercise demonstrated the evolution of her thinking from tactical focus to strategic understanding. Her ability to integrate complex operational requirements while maintaining awareness of political considerations indicated her potential for advancement to positions of significant responsibility within the special operations community. The completion of the Advanced Leadership Program coincided with her selection for Chief Petty Officer and assignment as the Operations Chief for SEAL Team 6. The position represented the culmination of her enlisted career progression and positioned her for potential commissioning as an officer if she chose to pursue that path. The role of Operations Chief brought responsibility for the tactical employment and operational readiness of the entire SEAL team, requiring coordination with multiple agencies and services while maintaining the high operational standards that defined the unit. The position required balancing operational requirements with training needs, personnel management, and the complex logistics of supporting special operations forces deployed worldwide. Sarah's approach to the Operations Chief position was informed by her understanding that effective senior enlisted leadership required more than technical expertise or operational experience. The most challenging aspect of the role was maintaining unit readiness and morale while managing the competing demands of operational deployments, training requirements, and personnel development. Her performance in the Operations Chief role was exceptional, earning recognition from commanding officers and senior leadership for her ability to maintain unit readiness while developing junior operators and managing complex operational requirements. The position provided her with valuable experience in strategic thinking and organizational leadership that would prove crucial for her continued advancement. After 3 years as Operations Chief, Sarah was selected for commissioning through the Limited Duty Officer Program, which allowed outstanding enlisted personnel to transition to commissioned officer positions based on their demonstrated performance and leadership potential. The commissioning represented recognition of her exceptional capabilities and provided her with the opportunity to pursue positions of greater responsibility within the naval special warfare community. Her first assignment as a commissioned officer was as the Assistant Operations Officer for Naval Special Warfare Group 2, responsible for supporting multiple SEAL teams and their operational requirements. The position required strategic thinking and coordination with senior military and civilian leadership while maintaining understanding of tactical realities and operational constraints. The assignment provided Sarah with exposure to the strategic and political considerations that affected special operations employment, while allowing her to continue influencing the development and training of SEAL operators. Her performance in the position was exceptional, earning recognition for her ability to balance competing demands while maintaining focus on operational effectiveness. The culmination of her career progression came with her selection for command of SEAL Team 6, making her the first woman to command a frontline special operations unit. The selection represented not just personal achievement but recognition that excellence in special operations leadership was determined by capability and performance rather than traditional assumptions about gender roles or limitations. Her assumption of command took place during a formal ceremony at Naval Special Warfare Command, with senior military and civilian leadership in attendance to witness this historic milestone. The ceremony represented more than a change of command, it symbolized the evolution of the special operations community and its commitment to selecting leaders based on merit and capability. Admiral Patricia Hayes, now commander of U.S. Special Operations Command, presided over the ceremony and delivered remarks that placed Sarah's achievement in the broader context of military transformation and the ongoing evolution of special operations capabilities. Commander Vasquez, Admiral Hayes began, her voice carrying clearly across the assembled audience of special operations professionals, represents the very best of our special operations community. Her selection for command is based on exceptional performance, demonstrated leadership, and the proven ability to excel in the most demanding operational environments. This moment represents not just personal achievement but the continued evolution of our community toward a merit-based system that identifies and develops the best leaders regardless of traditional barriers. The Admiral's words reflected the reality that Sarah's command selection was not symbolic or politically motivated but represented the culmination of a systematic evaluation process that had identified her as the most qualified candidate for this critical position. Her journey from a struggling student in East Los Angeles to command of an elite special operations unit demonstrated that excellence could be achieved through systematic preparation, unwavering determination, and the willingness to transform perceived weaknesses into sources of strength. As Sarah accepted command of SEAL Team 6, she reflected on the transformation that had brought her to this moment. The young woman who had once stood in a shower of shame, overwhelmed by others' low expectations and limited thinking, had become someone capable of leading the most elite operators in the world's most formidable military force. The weak self that had once whispered doubts and fears had been systematically destroyed and replaced with an unbreakable warrior identity that thrived under pressure and excelled in the face of adversity. Her journey had proven that the man or woman who destroys their weak self cannot be destroyed by others, because they have already conquered the most dangerous enemy they will ever face, the limitations and fears that exist within their own mind. Standing before her new command, Sarah understood that her greatest achievement was not reaching this position but transforming herself into someone worthy of it. The showers of shame had become moments of awe as she realized that every challenge, every setback, every moment of doubt had been a necessary part of forging the unbreakable strength that would allow her to lead others through the most demanding challenges they would ever face. Her story was not merely one of breaking barriers or achieving the impossible, but of demonstrating that human potential is limited only by the willingness to transform weakness into strength, fear into courage, and doubt into unshakable determination. In destroying her weak self, she had become truly indestructible, not because she was invulnerable to external challenges, but because she had developed the internal strength to overcome any obstacle through systematic preparation, intelligent action, and unwavering commitment to excellence. The journey that had begun with shame and limitation had culminated in command and limitless potential, proving that the most powerful transformations occur not in comfortable circumstances but in the crucible of adversity where the weak self is burned away to reveal the warrior that exists within every human being who chooses to accept the challenge of becoming their strongest possible self. The command of SEAL Team 6 would bring new challenges and opportunities for growth, but Sarah faced them with the confidence that comes from having already conquered the most difficult opponent she would ever encounter, the voice within that whispers that excellence is impossible, that barriers are permanent, and that circumstances define limitations. She had proven that voice wrong through systematic action and unwavering determination, and in doing so had become someone truly indestructible, not because she could not be challenged, but because she had developed the strength to transform every challenge into an opportunity for greater excellence. Her legacy would not be defined merely by the positions she held or the barriers she broke, but by the example she provided of what becomes possible when someone commits to the systematic destruction of their weak self and the disciplined construction of unbreakable strength. The showers of shame had indeed become moments of awe as she realized that every moment of difficulty had been a gift and opportunity to develop the strength that would eventually allow her to lead others to achievements they had never thought possible. In the end, her story proved that the most profound victories are not won on battlefields or in competitions, but in the private moments where individuals choose to transform their weaknesses into strengths and their fears into unshakable courage. The man who destroys his weak self can never be destroyed by others because he has already won the only battle that truly matters, the one fought within his own mind and heart for the right to become his strongest and most capable self.